Hi,
Desmond,
Warren.
Desmond, why were you so slow and late?
Oh, it's just me. I'm a slow, late kind of a girl.
I know, what can I say?
Yeah, I really felt like a one-band show there, a one-band man show.
Well,
You
you're not a
know
man,
me.
so that's the problem.
I know. Well, it's all acceptable these days. I am what I want to be.
Well, that's the world of transgender. We can be either, Jess. So you be the man, I'll be the woman. So let's just be really lovely today.
Okay, done. That's the best manly voice I got. Anyways, thanks for jumping on. I know we had another webinar. I'm just letting everyone know we keep super busy, we keep educating and keep on the engine, keep it going, don't we?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Well, it's been a little while, Warren, since I've been on with you. I almost was a little bit nervous tonight. Isn't that weird?
Oh, look, what can I say? I mean, maybe people prefer to listen to you than me anyway.
I don't know.
No.
I'm almost blushing, but it's lovely to see everyone here tonight. Thank you for coming. And Warren, what can I say? Daily, the news changes. There's, this happening, that happening, all distractions, right? Distractions,
Absolutely.
distractions, distractions.
Oh, look, there's always distractions in life. There's distractions in life. Your mind's distracted. There's always kind of stuff that's going on, stuff like that. The media, it's all noise really though, isn't it, Jazz? And it's just like the end of the day, as you know, from what I've been sharing in our team meetings and we've been doing, it's going back into your own inner truth and your own inner voice of your soul and things like that. So,
Yeah. Couldn't agree with you more. And I think that's what's really important about tonight is just to really speak our truth, especially like with the Global Wealth Club. And, Warren, the story that you share quite frequently, but I think it's really powerful. You founded the Global Wealth Club, and I think it might be just in a really short, kind of compact way. Why did you start the Global Wealth Club and what really instigated you to do that? Because I can tell you right now, there's a lot of people out there that are not as prepared as you are and what we're teaching. So it's really important to understand what we're all about.
gosh, where do I start? Wow.
I know.
I wanted to emulate Bill Gates, become a psychopath, vaccinate everyone in the future and kill them all off. Just something that was not really. Look, basically, the original thing was I've known this kind of day was going to come, but civilization would break down, that great reset. And I had a spiritual experience in 2018 that accelerated things. So until then, I always knew it was coming. I was running events, running different high net worth groups. But I was given a clear message in a very, very profound spiritual experience that blew my life and hologram into pieces, which some of you know about, that I knew I was shown that there's going to be vaccination experiments, that there's going to be this whole world breakdown. It was going to be very, very bad. And that it was going to be this collapse of the system as we knew it. And for me, that whole drive was to set up a company or system that would be able to help people to maintain and find their sovereignty, because I saw in the world ahead the days of the small business middle class that we know it would end. And it's easy to say that and theoretically imagine it, but to be in it, as you've seen, it's like 2 years ago, people were writing on Facebook about vaccines and jabs and all that, but living it, I'm sure we all agree, has been very, very traumatic. Like, I'm seeing it in the faces of the people after the mandates are now ending, that post-traumatic shock syndrome that's just feeling and reeking through the soul of our community. And I was sitting in a restaurant and going like, I was saying to my sons, look at those faces, what do you see?
Yes.
And at first they said, yeah, well, they're mask-free. I said, no. They're mask-free on the surface, but what do you see in their soul? They said, yep, they're well and truly trained. I said, they're bitches. They're dog trained. They're going to wear the next word from their master. Their master will be back on. They'll be jabbed. And before they know it, they'll be in a system where their money's being taken from them. They'll be dependent upon good behavior to keep their money, like on pocket money. And I said, this is the future that our youth are raising up for. I said, this is a big problem. I said, this is a serious situation. This is a big, big problem. And this is not a problem we can deflect. It just isn't. It's not something we can say, look, this is all too hard. Let's just give it to, that person, or nah, fuck that. We'll go live in the hills. Well, yeah, I'm not saying we don't take preventative protective action. That's what we teach heavily, but there's a social responsibility that's critical. So the Global Wealth Club is really about bringing all areas of life into balance, like getting your wealth protected, but also your inner wealth, like your soul, your fabric, but your physical health, but you're about, which is why we have Dr. Hobing Low speak regularly for club members. It's about spiritual health, which is why we have Grace and we have Mike Thornton and William and me sometimes speak on that. And then there's also about social responsibility, because at the end of the day, we are all part of a community. Unless you really genuinely do plan to go and live in the mountains on your own and live off the land, and even then you'll still feel what's going on, it'll just be a bit less painful. It's your problem, it's my problem, it's everyone's problem, you know, what's going on. So the Global Wealth Club's about getting people wealthy, number one, obviously, inwardly as well as outwardly. That was the vision, to help give people a structured, stable, certain process, not just the inspirational, motivational, because there's plenty of that shit out there, but something that would actually motivate, inspire, and give practical structure and guidance how to structure, protect your wealth, and as best you can, but also to reclaim the inner fabric of our soul, change our perspective, and ultimately social responsibility to fucking change our society. That was a big thing, because it's like, I mean, I don't know what we can stop and what we can't, but I think we can make a damn big difference, you know, if we all claim our place in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. And look, at the end of the day, you know, what you just said and what we're discussing, like all these distractions, we can focus on the distractions, but at the Global Wealth Club and this team, we don't want to do that. We are aware of what's going on, but we need to take action within ourselves. And the greatest thing that you can do for yourself and your family right now at this moment is actually maybe, you know, if you're getting really triggered, because Warren, I'm sure you know that I get triggered quite easily.
No, not you, Jason.
And I tell you what, even just being around people that have really encouraged me to be more balanced and, you know, to really look inward and to see some of the things that are happening in the world and realize that you can't rescue everyone. You got to start with yourself. And it's made the biggest difference in my life. I honestly can't encourage you all enough to really, really stop being distracted so much about all the outer things that are happening in the world, even though it's important. So, yeah, I just really wanted to share that because it's really changed my life. And I know that other people it has as well. So thanks for that, Warren.
Oh, look, I've got to say as well, Jasmine, I mean, just quickly on that one, you can't underestimate the power of having meaning in your life. Like, if I just summarize the Global Wealth Club's mission in a nutshell, it's make money with meaning, or even further, make safe money with meaning. That would be the summary of it, you know, because it's like, I've known so many people who are billionaires and super rich who given all their money away to a spiritual guru. Now, why would they do that? Because they found meaning with that guru. They found meaning in that mission. They found a reason to be here, but it didn't make them feel like they were a waste of space and empty, because all that money does, if you have no meaning and no soul, it highlights the emptiness. When you don't have much money and you don't have much meaning, it's kind of not so bad. You know, you can kind of deflect it a little bit. If you have money and you have no meaning, it highlights your misery. This is what I've noticed. By contrast, if you have meaning, money makes your life better because you can do more things. Like me having money means now I can go and buy a 4-wheel drive like I've done and learn to do something that I had no idea what to do, and actually learn practical skills, which is my biggest fear. You know, actually buy a camper trailer, be able to do stuff for my own little, you know, backup plan, just my fun little plan. You know, it enables you to go and have choices to buy the kind of food, get organic health, go and see good doctors that are conscious, go and see good chiropractors. So money gives you a shitload of choices, but money without meaning is awful. It's just dreadful. So biggest thing I'd say Global Wealth Club is giving people meaning as well as a fuckload of money well protected. Absolutely. Finding out your why, what to do with that money, just like you said, is so, so important. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's get into it, because I know you and Stephen have been talking politics, and let's be real, I'm not all that political. I know a little bit. Yeah. But what's your take more of it on, I guess, in a spiritual sense, and really just like your feeling of what you're seeing, what's happening, and what do you think's to come in the next, I think we've got three weeks until the election. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's like, it's hard to really know what's going to happen. I mean, I've been pretty good at predicting elections because I got my father's background. You know, my father was Australia's top political analyst, and generally I get pretty close or pretty good bet. Like last election, I was telling everyone that Mark McGowan would landslide, and Liberal would be lucky to win 10 seats. And everyone said that's a little bit of a exaggeration. I think Liberal won 6 seats. You know, wow. This election's not going to be anything like that. Although in saying that, I think Morrison's going to get wiped to the floor. I mean, I think he's going to lose more seats than people think, because there's the biggest fuck you vote against Scott Morrison I've just about seen. He's really not very popular.
Yeah.
But in saying that, he's going to do very well on the preference deals. That I'm pretty sure. I mean, I highly doubt United Australia will be, giving their preferences to Labor, and from what I understand, they're not. And I highly doubt Pauline Hanson would do it either. And from my understanding, apart from a few seats more as a protest for woke Liberals, they're the same. So that's going to make it interesting, because the preferences and other kind of stuff of the other parties, it's going to make it close. I mean, I do think Labor's going to win, and I'm not sure I put a 10 grand bet on it. And the reason why is just because a couple of reasons. One is just that Albanese, unlike the last election where Shorten, last election, Bill Shorten was very, very unpopular. No one really liked him. He's like Hillary Clinton, this kind of smiling guy who everyone knew was a hypocrite. Morrison no one really knew much about him. He's just some guy with glasses who ran economics and turned back votes and did vaccinations on childcare. So no one really took him seriously, and we just voted him in. This election, people have just decided that, whether it's with Morrison, and look, I like to be objective, as you know. In fairness to Scott Morrison, I think some of the criticism just represents the whole tall poppy syndrome of Australia, is that you could be Gandhi and you would be all over social media being trolled, because your glasses look weird or you said the wrong thing. I mean, you could be Buddha and you'd be called a fat ass, or I don't know, there'd be something that would be done. And I think some of the criticism is unfair. I think Morrison economically has done a very good job on managing Australia through this, and it's why we're way ahead of anyone else in the world with the Western. I think he's done a good job in making some attempt to sort out China. He has stood by some of the candidates who have different views, like Senator Rennick on the vaccines.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things Morrison's done right, which he's not going to get recognised. And he's more going to be looked at for the fact that with the bushfires, he didn't, wasn't present.
Yeah.
And personally, I think that was ridiculous. I mean, other people who've done the same thing got left out of it. It's just because people kind of don't like this white male who lives over there. That's kind of how I see it. I think where Morrison floundered badly was he started trying to be all things to everyone, a lot like his ridiculous comments on trying to be pally-pally with Mark McGowan and saying he did the right thing, when a year ago he's calling everyone cavemen, which everyone just lost respect for him when he did that. And just a lot of his just kind of going all over the place and not really giving a lot of clarity on stuff. So really, and I'm not saying that Albanese will be anything better. All that will happen is there's a big fuck you vote against Morrison, and there's not a fuck you vote with Albanese. Albanese is just a non-entity like Morrison was before. He's just some older guy who's got a nice smile. He sort of says, he gaffes a little bit, but he seems quite sweet. Overall, from what I've investigated him doing my research, he's actually quite an ethical guy. He's got strong principles. He's a relatively decent bloke. I think he and I would disagree on about 9 out of 10 policies, like 90%. But I think he's overall relatively ethical. I think he actually cares about less fortunate, and he's trying to help them the best he can. But inevitably, because the capitalists haven't stepped up and are more concerned with self-interest in society, no one's really solved the public housing problem and the economic crisis that are going on. Then Labor's not going to have a lot of choice other than to get up there and bring in socialism en masse, give out handouts and things like that, just simply because the capitalists and the wealthy of society haven't really overall stepped up. Australians prefer to go on Instagram, do naked shoots or do these semi-naked shoots, write on Facebook, not work and basically get a handout. And even the rich, would rather sit there and argue and bitch about the fact that their properties, they couldn't collect as much rent as they wanted during the pandemic. And then of course, many others who are wealthy prefer just to keep on doing that and avoid the problem and kind of put them in what I call the kind of high maintenance disabled relative category, the kind of person that you really want to push off to the government or let someone else take care of. And that's really been Australia's attitude. And we're going to pay a big price for it, That's how I see it. Very big price for it. I mean, there's a small chance. I mean, if people, as I talked in my last webinar, step up and really take more responsibility for the problem and start doing what they can, who knows, we can cushion a little bit of the blow. But Australia's going to pay the price like every other civilization in history who's refused to step up and own a problem and prefer to focus on their own prosperity rather than what's going on in their society and the fact that, not seeing that their youth have lost their way. And credit to my son, Edward, he made a very disparaging comment, he and James, about some youth the other day. And when we had a chat with them about it, they said today, yeah, we've really changed our perspective. We realised we're being very judgmental because we've had a very privileged background. These kids, like I said to them, like, who's leading these kids? Like I said, who's leading our teenagers? I mean, right now, who's leading the teenagers? I mean, this is their life. Their parents have told them, go to uni, go and get a job, go and do this, play sport. One day they've turned up, someone says you can't do any of that unless you accept that, that men can have babies, that someone basically can say they're a woman when they're not, that you have to wear muzzles on your face now, and that you don't have to wear it when you're having a drink. And then you go and have to have needle shoved into you. And, you can't sing when you're, you can sing, you can't sing when you're in the clubs anymore, but you can do this. I mean, that's going to fuck with their heads. I mean, us adults, and then our adults, our church leaders who could have stepped up as in times past and said, this is wrong, have kind of gone, oh, shit, we really don't know what to do. Well, we kind of just don't want to upset anyone. And then the fathers who basically spent their whole life letting their kids get away with anything go, and then the other fathers who've taught their daughters to be spoiled princesses because they let them do whatever they want. Then the girls are going, oh, this is so annoying, I can't get my nails done. And you got this like society, but it's so destined to be fucked up and destroyed. It's not funny. And that's why I'm a big believer in facing the ugly truth rather than pretending something's not happening. And the world's in shock right now. And there's a good fucking reason why they're in shock. They should be in shock. Like for example, there's sometimes when we make up things in our head, like, oh shit, what they might hurt my feelings. And then we get scared, but it's all made up. If a lion's coming at me and about to jump on me and eat me, if I'm a bit scared, it's probably not a bad thing. If I'm sitting there smiling, saying, oh, Lord Buddha, thank you that you're going to help me from the lion, and just stare at the lion smiling, I'm probably going to get eaten up, have my dick bit off, and I'm going to be killed, It's just... literally, it's just getting real what's going on. And it helps us, to absolutely, step up and do something about it. And that's why, obviously, you'll mention at the end, but that's why we're doing that thing I'm really passionate about, where tomorrow at 4 o'clock Perth time, 6 o'clock, we are doing that, empowering our youth, which is free. It's a philanthropic thing, youth sovereignty. 2 years ago, we did that with a group of youth. All of them are now flourishing in their lives because we taught them self-respect, financial management, rich dad, poor dad. Many adults snuck in and pretended they were kids and were very naughty, but that's okay, As long as if you've got a kid, you can sneak in behind the kid and listen, or you can turn up and pretend you're a teenager and kind of, put on a mask or whatever, But seriously, this is one of our ways of giving back to solve this problem and help empower our youth and tell them to get their friends and get them moving, because if we can put the soul back in our youth and we can reclaim society. And then who knows, maybe the government with all the problems will come to us, realising that we own this space in society and want our help to solve some of the problems. So I think we can limit the blow if we get moving. That's how I see it. Because I think Labor will win selection. I've got 10 grand on it. So I'm not saying I'm right, but I think, and even if they don't win it, it'll be rigged. I think they want them in, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, let's have a look. The Great Reset and the World Economic Forum and United Nations, there's all these plans, right? You'll own nothing and you'll be happy by 2030, blah, blah, blah. We all know that. But it's all about empowerment. It's about taking action. Now, you just said before about the capitalists and those who have a lot of money. They're not really stepping up to the plate. They're not fixing the problems, okay? No wonder why the government is mastering everybody and we are in this crazy-ass world at the moment, because no one's really stepped up to the plate to fix the problems. So please, 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 if you do have youth, get them on tomorrow. We're going to put the Telegram link in there. But let's just get to the point that everyone's really worried about. And, let's talk about like a socialist economy or a socialist government. Like, are we going to get there in Australia with the Great Reset? Do we have a chance to just like somehow not go down that way? And if we do go into a socialist economy and government, it's more important now than ever to take action to be a sovereign individual. Would you agree with that?
It's hard not to agree with that statement. I mean, I don't know what else you can say to that, but it's as accurate as you're going to get. It's I was saying today, I mean, I don't know who's seen Lord of the Rings here, the 3 movies, but the way I felt, if I had to summarize it, was Lord of the Rings 2, where you've got the city's been taken to siege. It's been smashed and smashed and smashed, and they're fighting with everything in them. And then finally, you could see when they broke into the city, there's Aragorn, there's Legolas, and the king. And the king goes, what's the point of it? We've lost the city. We've gone. Yeah. And that was how I felt last week. I just said, what's the fucking point? I said, we've lost the country. I said, I've done everything I can. I'm ready to go home. And I meant it. I'm out, I'm signing out, I'm leaving. And there was that statement from Aragorn, from the king. And Aragorn's saying, no, you got to fight, trying to be in his kind of logical and kind of got to do that and step up. And he's going, no, what's the point of it? He said, there's this death, there's gore, they're going to take the city. I mean, all Aragorn said is ride with me. Mm-hmm. And the king just stopped. Like he said it with conviction from his heart, ride with me. In other words, and the king knew what he meant. He goes to death and glory. He goes to death and glory. To die on the battlefield, protecting our people. Yes, we will do this. Then the king said, the horn will sound once again, one last time. And he grabbed the horn and he blew it and said, let's go for death and honor and glory. In other words, let's just go out and at least blast our way through and die protecting our people rather than lie here as cowards. And what they didn't know was when they did that, it opened the door and there was new help that came to them, the army of God, what I call the outposts of the army of God that no one knows about. The groups of people that are hidden away, but are making a stand in their own way, but don't quite know what to do. They don't hear a trumpet call. They just see these different outposts and there's this, and they feel they're all alone. And then, of course, Gandalf makes that comment to when they saw Gandalf there with all of those men, those former horsemen, and Gandalf turned and said, Theoden King stands alone. And the guy just said, not alone. To the king, and they all raced. In other words, they all got back together for the cause and they sorted the whole problem out. And then there was the next problem waiting them in the next movie. The whole point of that was until there was a stepping up and someone blowing the trumpets, the city was gone, and by and large, right now, the city is gone. The state is gone. We are socialists as of now. We are. Yeah. I mean, the last 2 years have proven that we've lost our balls, that we've lost our power, we've lost our mojo. Our people have been taken. So now, as previously was a case of standing our ground to protect our freedoms, now we have lost our freedoms, and now it's a case of fighting to get them back. Yeah. So it's a different ball game now, and it's just knowing that and going, okay, do we want to be Chinese communist slaves in 3 years' time where we have a social credit system where we are dependent on the government and where our properties have been by and large taken over and you have them at the good grace of your government? Mm-hmm. Now, it's one thing to say no. It's not a thing to take the logical, masculine, objective action that shows that you mean no. Yeah. If you just go on with your life as if nothing's happened and try and pretend it's not happening, you have said by your actions no. You have said, I'm kind of just going to hedge my bets so someone else will solve the problem. That's what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So that's what we've got to decide. Are we going to solve the problem? And are we going to get wealthy? And everyone's different. Not everyone can be me. I mean, anymore, as we all agreed yesterday, remember Jasmine and James, one of my son James, is incredible in the business because he's very stable. He's a guy who brings the order and compliance that you're all seeing coming to this club, which previously was a bit everywhere. He's one of the main two people with Kerry that's brought some stability to the company. Oh, yeah. He was saying, I often compare myself to you. And the way I answered him on that question, and I feel inadequate sometimes, and all I said was, who wants to have two of me and get rid of James? Now, everyone unanimously just said no. I mean, one Warren is great, but two would be disastrous, absolutely disastrous, because we would clash heads, we'd go to war and we'd kill each other and blow everything up together, Yeah. And I said, and so there was a unanimous agreement. If anything, they said, we'd rather have two James and get rid of Warren. That was the unanimous agreement, which meant I felt very butthurt, but I learned to get over it. So the point is, everyone's got a role to play. Like some of you, your role could simply be getting fucking wealthy and using that money in a conscious way, like my uncle did. My uncle got insanely wealthy, was a man of God, but he became amazing at property, and then he would use a lot of his property for charitable, to help grow churches, missions, made a huge impact, that man. Gave many people stable employment, changed their lives. My aunt went out. She became one of the most powerful missionaries I met in my lifetime, turned Cambodia on its head. When all the other missionaries are floundering around without any business sense, my aunt went in, having learnt from my uncle, and whipped everyone into shape and built stable, strong missions, got English teaching schools, and really brought some stability from the Pol Pot regime and the genocide, So they didn't go in there like doing what I did. So you don't have to do that. You may do that. You may set up an amazing charity. You may set up a church like a few of you doing, which I can see your names here. You can go out there and raise consciousness, start doing that philanthropic work to do that. As Marguerite says, wealth with purpose, money with meaning. That's how we summarize our mission, money with meaning. So in other words, like I know Marguerite loves animals and had this passion to help animals. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, just helping animals might seem small, but you help a small number of animals, well, and start treating them fairly and kindly, then other people think, well, maybe I've got permission to do that too. Because by letting Marguerite's light shine, other people who are thinking of doing that but felt silly go, well, maybe I'll do that too. Then someone else goes, well, maybe I'll start a refuge, and someone else says, well, maybe I'll go and be an activist and fucking stop animal cruelty. And before you know it, what seems to be quite silly becomes a really big thing. So this is what I'm saying. It's all about, with this election, actually finding who you are quickly, not kind of sitting there thinking, maybe I should sign up for a few more seminars. Or no, you just fucking find out.
Yeah, take action. Yeah, progress every day, every single day. Make progress. A little bit of progress is better than no progress. Yeah. So Warren, I talk to people all the time. I'm so blessed because I get to talk to everyone who comes through the Global Wealth. I love what I do. It's like the thing that gets me out of bed. But many people are worried because they think, okay, I've got a house, I've got assets. I don't know how to protect it. I'm freaking out. The government's coming for everything. We've got Labor taking a higher stake in property than ever before. Governments are just involved in your life like never before. I know the practical solutions that we offer, but, can you go a little bit about what we actually do offer practically for asset protection, like in terms of your house, your assets, what you do have? Second mortgage process, we've got that underway and it's working brilliantly, and we truly believe in what we do. Can you talk a little bit about that part? Because I think before people can go and increase their wealth and their money, they need to protect what they initially have and have a really good structure in place.
Yeah, look, that's a good point. And look, I like to think there's a Bible story of a guy called Nehemiah, and what Nehemiah basically did was he had a sword in one hand when he's building the city and to protect against the enemies, and a trowel in the other hand to build. So you got to have both. The sword is the structuring to protect your wealth. The trowel is building your wealth and continuing. So I believe the two going together works really, really well. So most people tend to get either caught up too much with the sword, the structuring, and others too much to get caught up with the wealth and then forget about that. So definitely the Global Wealth Club does second mortgages. What that means in simple terms, it doesn't mean you go to the bank and get another loan. It just means that rather than your property sitting there with lots of equity, where anyone who wants to sue you or give you some shit can just go on and cause you fear by taking it. If they see your property has got security, which is a mortgage over it from, say, a company or trust you set up, it makes it a lot less appealing in the legal game to take your property. If your properties are owned by a trust or structure, it's more difficult. Doesn't mean guaranteed, doesn't mean that the governments go, oh, you're exempt, but your chances of being favoured are much higher. If you're able to have minimal debt on your properties, your chances of being okay are much higher, minimal debt from the banks, because otherwise, let's just say that the banks, theoretically, what Albanese's plan to buy properties for the less fortunate and then force them to sell and help them buy it as a stake in the property, that's going to require massive government printing exercise. And the other thing is that, it just basically means that if property prices plummet, which could well happen as all this starts happening, they'll do the same. Like they'll say, oh, we noticed that your property was worth 800,000 and is now worth only 100,000. Now that's not inconceivable when civilizations melt, and you got a $300,000 mortgage. Therefore, we're going to have to buy your property or else foreclose on you. So just like that, they've effectively got 2/3 of a free property. That's the kind of scenario I can see happening in Australia very easily. And so having low debt, because I'm not as convinced we're just going to turn up and just take their properties for the sake of it. I think that's less likely, because once you do that, you've really broken down. I think what's more likely to do is in times of great starvation, like in the Middle Ages, for example. Many don't know that when there was the Great Famine of the 11th century, like it went for years, and people were starving, various rich lords came to them and they offered them to buy their property, but if they gave them their properties up, they'd cover all the expenses and let them live on it for free. So literally people just gave up all their properties. That's how feudalism came in, and a allodial title broke down. And historically, there's a man called Joseph in the Bible who, when great famine hit the world for 7 years and people were starving, they eventually gave all their lands and properties. And if you're starving because there's been an artificially contrived food shortage, because there's been a artificially contrived supply chain breakdown, it's gone on indefinitely, and you're starving, and you can give your property away to the government and they can assure you protection, they can assure you food, they'll let your family be fed, your kids get clothing, most people are just going to give it up. So, and I see that scenario coming if we don't do some very radical steps, and I don't actually think we've got enough balls to do it. That's my honest truth. I just don't think in Australia we do. I would love everyone to prove me wrong, and I'll sit there going, they prove me wrong. I just don't think Australia have the balls to do it. I think that we are a very cushy society and we don't have the mental strength even if we wanted to. I think there's a small handful who do, and the vast majority actually don't, because they've spent their whole life not doing that kind of stuff. So overall, I find it difficult to conceive a scenario where that kind of situation won't happen. So that means that you definitely want to make sure your properties are absolutely as much debt-free as you can, you know. That's my first comment. Like, and again, I can't give financial advice, but people ask me, I said, look, if I own 10 properties and I had like 50% debt, I'd be selling off a few right now while the prices are overinflated, and I'd get my debt wiped out. Then I get some second mortgages put on the property, or get some mortgages put on for my own structure so I control the security. Now, in that situation, the chances that you'll lose your property in the reset are very slim, you know. It would take an unusual scenario where governments completely just take it for the sake of it, which if that happens, that's the kind of world that, you know, you really have to be ready to pretty much go into an apocalypse. The more likely scenario is that people will just literally be forced to do it through starvation and through debt. So if you've got your finances well managed, and that's why we're doing this financial management event at the end of this month called Financial Management, Compliance, Record Keeping and Outsourcing, to help people get order and structure in their finances and stability, because that's going to give you a very, 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 very high chance of coming out okay. It's if you're kind of mortgaged to bed, or you just, what I call over complacent, like, well, you know, my property's worth $1 million and I've only got $300,000 mortgage. You're still at risk. I mean, properties in meltdowns can drop 80%. There's no question about that, you know?
Exactly.
So you just want to be really, why do you think banks insist on mortgage insurance unless you got 80%, you know? Because they know, that big drops happen very, very easily. You know, they know that. So they know the history of property cycles over the last 200 years. We've just been an artificial 50 years where, by and large, apart from brief periods, it's been very good in Australia. But look, the reality is, so you've got to be very, very protected, very, 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 very protected, very realistic, minimize debt, get your second mortgages, get trust with your other assets, own nothing in your own name. You want to own nothing, be happy. Literally, you want to create your own great reset where nothing's owned in your own name. It's all owned through structures. I'm already in a great reset long ago. I'm living the great reset. All my wealth's owned by foundations, owned by trusts, owned by structures, everything. I don't own stuff in my own name. I just bought a camper trailer that's funded by my foundation, everything. So I'm literally living the great reset, Jasmine. I own nothing and I'm bloody happy.
You are a happy chap to be around, I must say. Now, what about people worried about, you know, income streams and wanting to create passive income? I know we've got so much going on, and we, you know, always look at safer options and education and teaching. We've got crypto mentoring, which unfortunately Connor's not here tonight. But we do have a really fabulous crypto mentoring course that really you learn all the ins and outs. I'm actually doing it. And if you are not a crypto person or it freaks you out, don't worry, it's for anyone. If you really want to learn, it's a great place to go. So you can always email us, or I'll put the website there. And
it's really good. I like it, just because the big thing we've been very strict on with the crypto mentoring is a lot of them are just trying to promote unrealistic returns and scammy. We have strict rules against that. So we're very much about more teaching safety, as well as having the greatest chance to make great gains, you know, because safety is important. There's many scams out there. There's many ways to lose your money. That's the problem with a newly growing area. There's more gains to be made in terms of from the upside, and there's more scams and more problems on the downside. So, there's stuff like that. The other thing I want to chuck in there as well before I forget is, many of you would know interest rates went up yesterday. And
Yes.
they went up a lot. They went up 0.25 when everyone was expecting 0.15. Now, go back to 1928 before the Great Depression. That was what started happening. Interest rates were record low and they started doing big jumps. And they've already said they're going to do it. And Bill Gates has already said 2 days ago he expects there's a much worse pandemic on the way. COVID's not over. These new vaccines coming out, they're going to be stronger. Now, as I said, Bill Gates has been eeringly accurate. I wonder why, but anyway. So when Gates says something's coming, you know it's coming. When you've got, Albanese saying this is what's coming with properties, you know it's coming. When you've got interest rates going up 0.25, many people are going to go, oh, fuck, and you're going to want to start to, they're not ready. The ones who really hand to mouth, and the next one, believe you me, I've had so many clients, and I watch this, Jasmine, I say to them, I can't give you advice, but the best time to sell property is when the prices are high.
Exactly.
Now, if you're planning to keep it for the long term and you've got no debt on it, then great. But, might wait, it might go up. I'm thinking of doing it till September. Now, because I can't give advice, I don't say anything more, but I want to scream and say, for fuck's sake, I can't give you advice, but, when prices are high, if you're thinking of selling it, that's the time to do it. If you're not thinking of selling it, then don't,
Yeah,
it's very much like that. And so by and large, people don't take action soon enough. And that's why I think Australians are in a lot of trouble. That's my honest truth. And I think many on this webinar are probably in a lot of trouble. I hate to say that because I don't think people take actions fast enough. I think they'll read things on the internet and they'll get caught up and read this article and read that article, like I'm seeing hit the chat. And all it is a distraction. It's a way of dealing with your fear by, read this article, read that article, rather than being present in the fucking moment and listening to what I'm saying, That's how Australians deal with shit, and that's why we're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I would like to know, does anyone here feel the urgency from just listening tonight to take more action? Does anyone feel that they could be taking a lot more action? Because it's really good to own up to it.
I hope so.
Yeah, I really hope so, because, I always get re-inspired every time, and every single day, it doesn't matter what it is I take, I make small progress and, keep going, keep doing, keep chipping away at it.
If you're not, I honestly suggest you go and get yourself absolutely pissed and drink every single day, go on drugs constantly and keep doing it until you pass out for the next 6 years. That's my suggestion.
Literally, so take action. Listen to Warren and listen to us. We're really here, giving you warning signs. The red bells are going off. I just want to say, Darren and Tam, they've just recently joined with the Global Wealth Club. They're commenting. They're really learning so much. Darren has put a really great thing, and he's highly recommended Connor and the team. And honestly, it is so brilliant to see people take action, because
Tam's got the trust
to win.
Trust. Tam's got a trust signed up. Awesome, Tam. It's really cool. And Brad's saying about ATO clamping down on bucket company trusts to stop tax minimisation. And that's what happens in meltdowns when governments run out of money. So they'll start finding it any way they can. So there's plenty of idiots who are poorly structured and are sitting ducks. So just remember, the government have plenty of idiots to go and steal their money from. Just don't be one of those idiots, and be one of the few that take action.
Yeah, don't be mediocre. And that's what we were talking about yesterday, we're sick of mediocre everything. We want to be the greatest club. We want to help resolve so many problems in the world. If you want to join with us and do that, get on board. But if you don't, go to the pub and get pissed, as Warren said. And
look, it has to be real. If you really don't give a shit, then just be real. Forget about money. Give it all up. Give a vow to the monastery. Go and live out. Just basically go and get drunk every day. Go to the brothel once a week. Just go and basically go out in the bush and just basically own nothing, be happy, and wait till you die. I mean, you can do that. But if you value your wealth and your way of life, then take a lot of action. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Take action. We posted today, the Great Depression created more millionaires than any other period in history.
Because wealth transfers. Because governments, as Stephen Pettit said, it's like in Russia. The days of pure communism are very unlikely to happen again, because governments have found that doesn't work. So what they really want is a society that has no small business or middle class. It has a number of very smart sovereigns who basically are wealthy and who are basically doing things that they don't have to worry about. I mean, they can focus on just controlling the masses, jabbing them and having the time of their life with them, making money out of them from other stuff. So if you're one of that small group of people who's sovereign and making a difference, you won't only be okay, but you'll be honoured, and you'll be by and large probably given some grants. That's what I said. There's going to be insane millionaires and wealthy people created out of this. You know, as I say, someone's got to become the most powerful sovereign in the world. May as well be me. That's always my mantra every day. Someone's got to be the best in the world. It may as well be fucking me. And now what's happening is Edward said that to me. He goes, someone's got to be the best business owner in the world. It may as well be me. And my son's now saying, William, someone's got to be the best shaman in the world. It may as well be me.
Yes.
It's a good mantra to have.
Yes. And
if you're a doctor, you can make that your mantra. Someone's got to be the best doctor in the world. May as well be me.
Yes. Yeah.
Who likes that?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Everyone's putting so many comments in, taking action and, you know, wanting to live a sovereign life. It's just so awesome to see. I love it. It excites me. Now, Warren, you do talk a lot about going, offshore, and we've got other residency programs coming into place. Can you speak a little bit on that? I know Stephen usually would with you, but it's quite exciting what we have to offer shortly. And a lot of the work, if people are wanting to move abroad, we're able to help you also do that. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like setting up, like everything, it's like, it's like going to primary school, kindy, you go to primary, you go to secondary, you go to uni, you go get a job or whatever else, So really for some, it's just starting out at the very basic, which is like, if you really don't have much money, but don't be running around setting up fancy structures, just get yourself a stable savings plan. Come along to our financial management event at the end of this month and learn the basics of that. And, and as well as the more advanced stuff we'll be teaching you as well, rest assured. But, get that right. If you've got some money coming in, but you've got some assets, but no structures, get some structures like company, trust, basic plan. If you've got those basics already, look at doing it a bit better and getting more advanced structuring. If that's all really good, then look at ways to maybe start looking at foundations or going offshore and doing what Labor are going to be doing. And that's why I'm very happy that I use foundations and offshore, because Labor have always favoured that traditionally because all their guys are doing it. So they want to make sure, but it's true.
It's true though. Hello.
No, it's fantastic. So when Labor just leave these guys alone by and large. So that would be the idea. So by and large, get left alone. Because their own guys are doing it. And and when you do that, and then if you got that stuff sorted out, start looking at investment syndicates or second passports and second citizenship so you can leave the country. If it really doesn't suit you anymore, you got a choice. So it's all about creating choices depending on your level of awareness. So if you've got money and all that, you may want to be looking at that second passport. We're getting inundated with requests for that, or getting into private equity, into new breeds of investment and investment management and portfolio, and learning how to do that and get yourself out of the financial planning, fucked hard system or whatever, and build and be part of a new way of doing it. And, where you become sovereign. And that's why I'm glad we don't provide financial advice, because I don't want to. I want people to be very empowered, very educated, and learning to do it themselves, learning their options, making their own choices, because at the end of the day, if I make your choices for you, you'll never really thank me if you get it right. I mean, you will, but you'll certainly make sure the world knows about it if we get it wrong. So it's better if you be empowered, because everything you do has risks. It's just some things historically have far less risk than others. So that's why we do a lot of our investment mentoring programs. We have the offshore second passport. And the reality is many clients who've done that have now exercised it. So it's great to have choices, and it's easier than you think to get one. It's easier than you think.
Yeah, that's right. So if you are wanting to know more, if you are just like, okay, that's it, I've had enough, I need to start somewhere. You can click on the link, have a look. You can book an initial call, just fill out the form. You'll come and see me. There's a bit of a process. So just follow the links. And as I said, we've actually got a lot of free education there as well. So start with those videos if you're not too sure where to start. Now, Warren, we actually are going to be covering quite a lot around health in the next coming month. We've got HB, our medical specialist and functional doctor, to talk about really how to empower yourself and your health, especially coming into the flu season. So for the next 3 weeks, starting next Wednesday, we've got HB. He will be presenting. And I'm telling you what, I mean, HB is one of the most knowledgeable doctors. And oh, wow. Like when he talks, he really teaches, educates, and he will be brilliant to be able to help you get self-empowered in your health.
Oh, he's an awake doctor. Would you agree he's one of the most awake doctors you've ever met? Like I've met a few, but he's really good.
Yeah, and not only that, like he's done really well in himself. He actually came to Warren initially for his own structures, and he's done really well in, you know, the crypto space, and his knowledge just overall is just brilliant. So if you really are wanting to, you know, maybe just get your health back into balance, you know, listen to someone who really knows and lives and walks the walk and not just talks it. HB is your man. So we will be sharing a lot about that space starting next week.
I actually want to make a comment on that. I mean, this is the one thing when so many areas, but like, again, like my kids often forget, less fortunate, but as some of you know, I've had the most appalling health issues in the past. And when I say appalling, I was so bad, I had no problem getting an exemption from the jab. You know, that's how bad my health was. I've had all kinds of anaphylactic reactions, autoimmune. I had chronic back problems, and I mean, all my family know as soon as I get a health issue, they freak out because they said, oh no, Warren's a nightmare. Like, I do not suffer in silence. Like, everyone around me suffers with me. I'm like, I'm not suffering with health unless you're all suffering, because then you're going to want to fucking fix me, you know? And I had asthma as a kid. I had, God, I mean, I could just about give you a great list. I was a walking medical dictionary. And hay fever, everything. But literally through great doctors and learning and a lot of the stuff with Ho Bing and other stuff I worked out myself and going to various specialists, I'm in the best health I've ever been in. Like, I was actually, you know, saw a homeopath and a doctor checkup, and they pretty much said to me, there's not really anything wrong with you. And the only thing the doctors got me doing is some kind of special compounded mixture along with some, you know, to basically, because they said it will help you with heavy metals, basically to detox them, because they said you don't really have much, but there's a tiny bit in there. So it's more just fine tuning. That's how good my health is. But believe you me, I worked at it. I mean, you know, I do Pilates twice a week, and I get smashed and destroyed. I've been working on getting monkey bars because I couldn't even, you know, like most adults, your shoulder strength. I'm now able. The other day I went to one end of the monkey bars almost to the other for the first time. So I'm, you know, doing stuff like that. I'm eating better. But yeah, your health, if your health is fucked up or not very good, it's terrible. And if you think, and it will make going through what you're going to go through in days ahead much worse. So if you've already got people to look after you, then great, keep doing what you're doing. But if you really haven't had that mentoring, I mean, I've spent thousands and thousands and thousands, and you want to hear Ho Bing telling you.
Oh, I mean, absolutely.
He talks about what 5G does to you and EMS, which can really mess with you. And as Tam says quite correctly, no point being wealthy if you can't absolutely enjoy it. Like, I'm enjoying it now, because when I had bad health issues, I mean, I wasn't enjoying it. I was in Bali with a ruined back 3 years ago, and I still enjoyed it. But half the time I was crying and, you know, being an absolute nuisance to Sammy and everyone else around me. And
like that.
No, I ended up going on a water fast for 10 days and going all out, because I thought, you know, either God heal me or kill me. And then I got some insight and I started cleansing myself up. And then I was taken and then went on a rehab program and got myself right, you know. But but now I'm very prevention focused on my health. I stay in good health, you know.
Yeah, prevention. So please, we will keep everyone updated. And as I said, you know, it's really exciting what we have to come. We don't just cover finances and wealth. Absolutely, that's a very big part, but we really are very holistic. You know, sovereignty is your health, because Tam said, if you don't have your health, what good is wealth, right? Now, Frank has a live question for you just before we kind of wrap things up, because we're nearly an hour. He has said, taking action doesn't come cheap. What sort of wealth does one have to make it worthwhile? Say if you have your own home plus maybe 500,000 investments, is it worth it?
I always find those questions interesting, because it's, well, it comes only if you value it. If you don't give a shit, Frank, if you lose it or not, then I wouldn't bother about taking any action. If you do care about it, you should be taking action on it. So that's a question of whether you care about it or not. So if you don't give a rat's ass if you wake up and your 500K investments is gone, it's like if I didn't give a rat's ass if my car got written off, I wouldn't get insurance. I happen to have a rat's ass about it, so I got insurance.
Yeah. So it's really about, you know, the greater risk, right? If you don't do it, you've got a lot more to lose than if you do it. So yeah, but that does come down to your personal take on it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, excellent. All right, so we're going to wrap it up shortly. So call to action. So number one, we've got our Youth Empowerment Sovereign School starting tomorrow. Okay, so the link is in the chat. Ed, can you just pop it back in there again? Or Warren, look at you. Go, Warren. You're an administrator as well.
No, but you can tell I'm passionate about helping you.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I was like, no, I want to get this in. I want to get this in.
Oh, yeah, because, we know the youth. We've got to raise the up-and-coming generation, right?
Oh, look, I'm passionate because I had so many opportunities in the youth. I had a really messed up childhood because I was bullied. I was miserable. I didn't like school. I was forced to do all this kind of shit I didn't want to do. Yeah. And I got involved in a great youth movement. I was telling people in a great church, like best church ever. And in fact, we had such a good group of youth and we all made pledges of each other. We made pledges to be different. We made pledges not to drink alcohol. We all decided not to have sex before marriage, all kinds of stuff. I look back now, but because we made all those pledges, I kept our minds clear. I learned music. I became creative. I studied everything and I learned empowerment very young because of that, So good youth mentors and leaders and guides, you can do all kinds of great stuff. Whereas today's generation, we've lost our moral compass. And so, this is our way of doing something about it. And look, people ask me what age group. Basically, if you're a child between ages 8 to 88, our main focus is obviously, teenagers we find about 17 or about 6 to about 23 get particularly well. But, if there's under 17, then, we've had people come who were 14 who got results, when we did our pilot project, We've had adults sneak in, as I said, disguised as kids. So in terms of terms saying in-person events, if we get enough people, you bet your life they'll be in person, My feeling is this will grow. And because we want to teach kids spiritual stuff as well as financial stuff, as well as all that kind of stuff. And the good thing with teaching youth is we make it deliberately very simple. That's why many adults reckon they've actually got results because it's so simple.
Yeah.
We go back to basic rich dad, poor dad. And what's great with kids, they just do what you tell them, especially girls. I always like having youth girls who come because they just tend to go, and they just do what you tell them and get rich. Whereas guys, sometimes the ego kicks in, But fortunately with youth, it's less so.
Yeah, that's right. So as we said, the Telegram group is there. Join. Anyone can come. There is no cost to it at all. Just come along. All we ask is, you just have an open heart and obviously, take your kids there and click on the link and attend. Now, the next one that we want to do is if you need to know more about, second mortgages, second residencies, offshore, you're just not too sure, click on the link. We will be letting everyone know about the event at the end of this month. We should have that ready by the end of this week. But it's really, really important. We will notify you of what's coming up because it's really, really important to master your finances. And
what I might do, Jess, I'll just quickly show the screen. So this is a Global Wealth Club screen. So all you got to do is just, you got the details to book in here. If you want to watch some education, there's some free videos here you can jump in and watch. We have some really cool stuff, If you kind of think I'm sexy and want to see more of my face, watch some of these videos. And you'll get the joy of seeing a bit more of my face,
I listen to the videos all night long.
Look, if you're in love with me like Jasmine, you can be more in love with me and be in my presence, even though you're not physically with me. I can become your virtual boyfriend. So.
Yeah, but there's so much there on the website. So honestly, please do. We're not just doing it for this sales pitch, go. There's a lot of information. So start somewhere, take action now. Don't even have to wait till tomorrow. Is there anything else that you want to finish up with, Warren, before we say goodnight to everybody and head off into the next part of our night?
No, just absolutely take action. And action, when I say action, doing those logical, objective things that you really don't want to do. And as you know, when I go to management meetings, do you think I really want to be there, Jess? I'm literally forced there.
Yeah.
I'm forced there, but I turn up and I show up. Even my Pilates instructor said to me today, she goes, "Oh, you're fun to be with because you're such a drama queen." She said, "You whinge and carry on, but you keep showing up." I said, "Yeah." Well, I said, "Of course I'm going to get results, but no," I said, "I don't like being here." I said, "You're horrible to me. You're abusive to me. You make me do awful things I don't want to do, but I get stronger and healthier, so I'll live with it." And that's kind of, that's the name of the game. Keep doing the stuff and just doing little things each week. Don't go away and try and do 20 things. List down, if 2 or 3 things jump out at you, maximum 3, just go bang, 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 get them done.
Yeah, that's exactly right. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much. We look forward to seeing great results and some of you coming through. Otherwise, keep attending the webinars, keep connected, don't get distracted by everything else that's happening and take action. All right. So thank you, Warren. Thanks, team. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you next week with HB. Get your health back into check. Let's go.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.